Hello. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Hi. Oh, this is great. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. All right. We've got a lot of folks who are going to be joining us today, so we're not going to get started right away. We're just going to wait a few minutes for everyone to come in for this session. This is the Getting Most out of Academic Advising, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But as always, it always takes a few minutes for everyone to get in the room. And so I'm just going to wait about 2 or 3 more minutes before we actually get started. But super nice to see you here. Recognize a lot of your names, which is super fun. It's fantastic. Greetings. Let's see. I'm not seeing the numbers climb. Usually if I say let's get started, that's the way that we get like 2 or 3 more people in. It's like, it's my secret. Let's see, and Grant, I sent you, excellent. Well, this is fun. I'll tell you all this. You are now at the point where just about everyone here are students who are going to be your classmates in the fall. And so I think it would be really fun for you to be able to see each other and to see your faces. So I will invite you to turn your screens on, and then you can sort of peek into the face of your future classmates who you're going to be seeing this. Hey, hi, yay, good to see you. Hey, Reedies. This is so fun. This is my first admitted enrolling student event. So I'm getting to see y'all for the first time. This is so cool. Excellent. Yeah, wave hi to your classmates. You can see everyone. It'll be fun for you to see folks that you're going to actually be on campus with in the fall. You may know me. My name is Miljan Trula. I'm the Vice President and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid. That's my handwriting on your admitted student letter. And so it's so great to have you all here. And basically, we're doing a lot of events over the summer to help you get ready for enrolling in the fall. And so you've probably frequented some of them. We're going to have about 1 a week. And so you'll be joining us hopefully for a lot of these sessions. We also have a few of our ambassadors, a group of our student staff who are going to be your primary resource for answering questions over the summer. You'll get a communication from them introducing themselves in just a bit before they hand you over to our orientation wayfinders, who are the folks that are going to help you with orientation. But there's a lot of ways to get connected and to stay connected and to make sure that you start learning who your community is. And so just for fun, I want folks, let's see, to chat out where you're from. City, state would be a lot of fun. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have both of our guests introduce themselves. And Kelly, why don't we have you go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. You all look beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm having okay, here, I think I'm good. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yep, sure can.
My laptop, everyone, it decided to update right now. And so I'm using my phone. So things look a little funny. Anyway, my name is Kelly Chacón. I use she and they pronouns. I just got tenure in the chemistry department where I teach introductory college chemistry, which maybe more than a few of you will be trying out whether or not you decide to major in STEM. I promise it's a great class. And then I also teach the upper division biochemistry, metabolic biochemistry, like the second semester of that. And then I also teach the practical laboratory, the advanced biochemical techniques. And I love advising. So I'm really excited to meet all of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And for folks who don't know what tenure is, how would you describe it to someone who's unfamiliar with the academic institution? Because it's an important thing.
I agree. And I'm first in family. So to me, it was a very interesting prospect. Yeah. And so essentially, you know, you get your bachelor's degree, and then you're like, I really want to pay it forward and be a professor and, you know, do the wonderful things that were done for me in STEM, especially. And so after graduate school, I particularly looked for a place that was liberal arts, that I could get to know everyone, and Reed is such a beautiful place for that. And then when you get hired as a professor, you're an assistant professor at first, which you don't really assist anyone, but it's just an archaic term. But you do a lot of work. And then after a period of about 6 years, after accumulating a bunch of research and service and teaching, you finally put in your little packet for consideration to be essentially life bonded to the institution. What's wonderful about that, and especially at Reed, is that there is a freedom of, you know, like the life of the mind can be lived more freely because you're allowed to speak up, you're allowed to advocate for things that you want to, and also you sort of have, the institution has your back. So it's essentially, you would become an associate professor, and yeah, now I'm married to Reed and I love it.
That's congratulations, by the way. That means
you.
you're around to stay. I love it.
Yes.
And Nigel, you're up next.
Thanks, Millian. So my name is Nigel Nicholson. I've been, as Kelly put it, married to Reed for a long time now, since 1995. I am a professor of Greek, Latin, and Mediterranean studies. He, him. I usually teach Human 10, and I'll be doing that again next year. And so I will, chances are, see some of you in that class. I also teach Latin, I teach Greek, I teach a lot of poetry, and I particularly do a lot of work on Greek athletics. And I'm teaching a 200 level class in translation on Greek athletics and the way in which athletics gained meaning and how that meaning was used. And as a 200 level class, there are 8 seats held for first years. So if you're interested in that, sign up for it.
That sounds like an interesting one. And Nigel, you recently had a different type of relationship with the college.
I did. Yes. So Millian and I spent a great deal of time together for about 7 years. I was dean of the faculty, which is the kind of the academic vice president, sort of responsible for trying to help good folks like Kelly be their best. And that's a great job. It's a tiring job, and I'm very happy to be back teaching again.
It's good to see you again, Nigel. Good to be in the same room.
Indeed.
And you all have 2 essentially experts on advising. And I'm going to start off with a few questions. I know y'all will have a ton, but I'm going to start off on real basics just to help situate us. Number one, what does advising mean at Reed? What does it mean to have an advisor? What do they do? What's their job? And the second thing, just a really quick snapshot of what the roadmap is like. How many credits a year? How is it organized? And then we'll launch from there. So who wants to do what's an advisor?
Why don't I have a crack, and Kelly can fill in all the things that I missed.
Thank you, Nigel.
The basic difference, right? So in college, you have a lot of choices. There's a whole lot of classes you will never take, right? There's a lot of classes you will take, but there's a whole lot more classes you'll never take. And you need someone to kind of help you navigate, what you should be taking, when you should be taking it. Part of that is about kind of fulfilling your kind of academic mission, what you want to be and what sort of work you want to do. And part of it is making sure you're ticking the right boxes and getting the right requirements done. And, these are not particularly difficult things, but without a bit of help, you could easily kind of find yourself not ticking the right boxes, right? So your advisor's there to, along with, we have a lot of software and stuff to help you do this, but to make sure that you're kind of taking the right kind of trajectory through. I would also say, the right kind of trajectory from the point of view of developing as a student, right? So, you may have a solid idea of what you want to do, and you may just want to do just that. But part of the whole point of having requirements is to make sure that you're kind of getting a broad education, that you're experiencing a lot of different stuff, that you're, stretching a lot of different muscles. And the requirements are there to sort of ensure that. And so your advisor is going to help you make the most of those. Kelly, I don't know if you want to add at that point.
No, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's advising is, to me, it's a place where, I mean, we kind of call it high touch in a way, because it really is a place where you can share your vulnerabilities, your hopes, even if you're not sure if you can achieve them. Like, you come in saying, I want to do it all. Great, we're going to figure that out. And then when you're maybe feeling like maybe you're not sure if you're taking the wrong path, or, you're feeling, we help you figure out if it's just maybe feeling insecure and how we can bolster you and make you feel stronger, or to very, concisely help you get to where you want to go. And so I think that's really important. And whatever you say to me in the advising room, aside from obvious things that would be, concerning about your health or something like that, it stays with me. It will never be repeated. And so there's a lot of things that you get to know about your advisee that really let you help them achieve their academic dreams. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I would say, your professors really want to kind of help you thrive here, but precisely your advisor is not the person teaching that class, right? I mean, you might actually have your advisor for a class, but fundamentally, your advisor has a different relationship with you because they're not grading you, they're not setting you work, they're just trying to help you make the most of this place and deal with any obstacles that come your way as well.
Oh yeah, and one last thing, which I didn't have because I was first in family, and I got like a GED and went to community college and then went to a regular college. But the thing that I think with advising is that we can kind of help you with navigating the academic norms, like how people behave, like if you're new to college, right? Or the idea of how do you talk to a professor about a late assignment, or how do you, like, there's a lot of role play that we can do, which is really helpful and would have helped me, right? Like, oh, I'm having this problem with a person in class, the dynamics are kind of odd, how do we deal with that? And so, while I'm not your mother or your sister or your therapist, I am someone who can help you navigate those norms and really get to understand them, but also accept and welcome what you bring in as a unique person from the outside.
So we know that in high school, some folks are on quarters, some semesters, some trimesters, some started high school at 10th grade, some at 9th grade. What is the composition? What are we shooting for at Reed? What is our setup?
In terms of basic sort of courses and quads and so on. Yeah, I mean, maybe just a sort of couple of philosophical things before we get into the weeds, right? So the main point of a liberal arts college education is a mix of breadth and depth, right? So you're required to get depth by the requirement to have a major, and you're required to get breadth by the breadth requirements, sometimes called general requirements or group requirements. And so your kind of requirements are going to be a mix of these things, right? A mix of things that ask you to do a lot in a narrow area, and then a kind of spread in a broad area, right? So fundamentally, to graduate, you need 30 courses. And you'll hear courses being described in different ways in different places. Sometimes people will refer to units, and units may actually be quite a bit less than a course. We really just fundamentally deal in courses, and almost all our courses are full courses. Maybe there's a lab course in chem, I think that's a half unit, but really every course is a full unit course. And you need 30 of them in your 4 years, right? And so some of you will be lucky enough to have a little bit of credit from APs or work done at the college level prior to coming in. But fundamentally, if you don't, right, it's 7 units your first year, 8, 8, 7. That gets you to 30, right? So of those, your major, which includes your thesis, right, will be anything from 8 to 14 of those. So somewhere between a quarter and a half, depending on the major, right? Some majors just have more requirements. They are particularly some of the interdisciplinary majors, right? There's just sort of more to get under your belt before you get to thesis. Then there are the breadth requirements, and these ask you to do fundamentally 4 things. They ask you to do some work in the humanities and arts. They ask you to do some work in the social sciences and history, and they ask you to do some work in math, natural sciences, and biology. And that's a natural science, isn't it? Yes, physical sciences, biology, and psychology. So those are the 3 sort of disciplinary groups. I'll come back to those in a sec. We also ask you to do Humanities 110, which is your kind of college prep writing class. And then we ask you to do some interesting things like physical education, six half units of that, which is frankly really fun. There are some substitutions you can do with that, but I'd recommend doing archery and canoeing and whatever else tickles your fancy. Within those 3-unit groups, I know this is a lot of information, right? You need to do 2 in one specific discipline and 1 in another. So say you're doing it in the science grouping, fundamentally you need 2 chem classes and 1 math, or 2 computer science and 1 bio, or 2 psych and 1 chem, right? They come in units of 2 and 1, which sort of reflects this breadth and depth idea, right? That it's not just a smattering of stuff, but as you kind of move through the different majors, you're going to get actually quite a lot of several majors. And that might change your life, right? Part of the point is all of these classes are actually foundational major classes. We don't have classes for non-majors. So you're going to be in real chemistry classes, real Latin classes, right? Whatever it is. And should you like it, you just continue, right? And that can be your major. You don't have to kind of start again, right? And people change their majors a lot here, right? Just there's a lot of fun stuff, and it's often difficult to know what it's going to be, right? But keep your minds open and follow it, and the group requirements kind of help you do that. That was a blizzard. Kelly.
Well, it was thorough, and I think that's important. And the thing I think to add on to what Nigel was saying is that this is designed in a way that once you're on the treadmill, so to speak, the hills and valleys are going to become more clear to you, right? So with that first year advising, you're going to be a little overwhelmed, like, well, this is kind of what I'm thinking. You're going to want to take everything. Everyone always wants to take far too many courses that first semester. And that's not to say that, we will not allow, you can do what you would like. This is your journey. But there are ways that we can help you where we're just kind of looking at the goalposts from semester to semester. I think that's what's so important about the advising relationship, is that first year, we're going to make sure that the things that you said to us in your letter to your advisor, which is very important, and I'm sure we can discuss that a little bit, but you could say, oh, I'm kind of interested in neuroscience. I'm also really kind of interested in history. And so that's, something where we'll say, okay, well, here are these fundamental classes that we recommend you take for that depth of, okay, maybe you do want to be in mathematics. So let's give you what you need to make sure that you'll be ready in the next 3 years. Don't stress. You'll get to the other things later. And then here are some fundamental courses in history. Then we'll reevaluate. So with everything that Nigel is telling you, we have that well in hand. And so you can kind of trust the process. And then the other thing I want to stress to you as you think about those letters to your advisor, kind of what you want to come in with, is that with the sort of ungrading policy that we have, where you're not necessarily, unless you're pre-med or there's a certain engineering program or there's certain things where there are benchmarks, we are just going to encourage you to enjoy the process. You don't need to be the star student all the time. You can just surrender and enjoy something very different. And a lot of people, a lot of students I know said, well, I took linguistics. I wasn't the best at it, but gosh, I loved it. That was awesome. And so don't be afraid of that as well. And to kind of tell your advisor some of the wilder things that you would like to pursue. So I think with all of that structure that Nigel has given you, we have that in hand. You can always come to us and say, I still don't get it, and we will explain it.
Yeah, I think that this is really good, right? That in a way, you can think of your advisor as kind of somebody who translates for you, right? If you, when you, Kelly's talking about this letter, which you may have been asked to write already. I'm not quite sure when that comes in, but you're asked to write a little letter to your advisor. And, what we want to know in that letter is not, do you want to take Chem 101, but do you want to be a chemist? Right? What are the other things you're interested in? And we can kind of help you unpack what that means in the more basic terms of what you're going to take in the fall and what you're going to take in the spring, right? We've seen many, many students go through, and we know how it works. And much more helpful are these larger things, right? What do you want to be? What are you interested in? What are you kind of interested in? What are the different things you want to keep open?
Yeah, and where do you feel insecure too? That's a private space. Like I've had students, be a little vulnerable with me and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in psychology, but I never had any in high school, or I never had any experience with this, and I'm not really sure if we can really help with some of those insecurities," which I'm just telling you, I mean, we all have them. And coming to Reed, you're going to realize you're among a bunch of other brilliant souls just like you. And it's really an interesting journey. And that's what we're there to kind of help you with and get that confidence of trying things. We're your cheerleader.
So I'm curious, so I have two questions. The first is, how is a student and an advisor match? How many advisees does a professor have? Is it someone in my major, not in that major? So that's one question. The second question, we know that the biggest major for any college is undecided. And so I would love to hear two things that you say to undecided students to help them just to start thinking about things. So just two questions from each of you. But the first one, how are you matched? How's that system work? How many advisees do you have?
Kelly, why don't you start this? Because
I love it. Okay, so and I'm relatively new to Reed. I mean, so it's very fresh, like the process and how all of this works.
You've been here like for how long, Kelly?
I've been here since 2015.
That's a good time. You're an expert now.
In any other career.
Okay, so basically, the letter to the advisor is important. Also, there's a questionnaire that you fill out. If you've already filled this out and you're like, after this session, you're like, oh, I really wanted this or that, just let us know. We'll make sure that we can add things or subtract, however you might like. That's a great question. Is the letter that you've mentioned different than the advising introduction form we were asked to fill out? I believe that what is it, Milia? Is that the same thing or the different thing?
Different.
Same. Yeah. Is that different?
Well, it's like all part of the same package,
it's the same
right?
Packet, but there's a letter and a form.
We get a letter and we get a form.
Yeah.
We get a questionnaire, but okay, we'll get to that one in a minute. So essentially from that, you're kind of put into the Hogwarts sorting hat of, all right, this person said that they're interested perhaps in computer science. It's like first, second, third. What are you super passionate about right now? Like, what's your flavor today? And then what other ice cream flavors might you like if you find them to be interesting? And so from there, you'll be given an advisor that best matched what you wanted at that time. Now, in my experience, that can change very quickly. And you might end up meeting with a theater professor because you said, I want to be an actrice. And then you realize maybe that I didn't want to necessarily start with that, but I really like my theater advisor. Maybe I'll just stay with them. They're just as qualified to help you with many different things, and they can call on the other experts. So if you love that theater advisor and you happen to go into neuroscience, it's not impossible. That said, you should always feel free if you were placed with an advisor and you realize you changed your mind, you want to major in German. Just let us know, but it's based on what you said. And so usually you'll get put into an umbrella, like a field of study that at least jibes with what you were interested in. But again, you can change that at any time. And the advisor doesn't even have to know. And it doesn't hurt our feelings because it's about getting you the best experience. And besides that, we always keep tabs on students. We care about you, and we'll always find you the resources that we need. So if you love your advisor, even if they're not in your, like what you decided to do, that's fine. We'll figure it out. But if you want to change, that's good too.
And there are certainly, some majors that have a lot more folks than other majors, right? So there aren't a huge number of Greek and Latin majors. There are a lot of physics majors. And so I actually formally advise physics majors. I had 5 physics majors last year, and I've been trained to do this, right? So I know how the physics program works on a level that is more than I just normally did, right? And there are a few folks who do this, sort of these sort of Uber advisors, typically from humanities and arts departments. So you may get placed with one of us, but we will know, right? Anyone you get placed with will know how to organize whatever it is you wrote on your form. Now, if you in the meantime have decided you want to do something totally different, that's fine too. We can work it out. We can get on the phone, or we're going to know anyway. So I wouldn't worry about the match, right? And you'll get to know profs in your chosen department because you're going to take their classes. As Kelly says, you can always switch if you want, but you're definitely going to switch at some point to someone in your major, right?
That's a good point. Eventually, I will be shyly approached by someone in their junior year. Maybe they're thinking about grad school in the sciences. That relationship is important. And often they'll still keep in contact with the previous, because it's like just having yet another person on your team. In the STEM, I also wanted to address the second part of the question, which is how many advisees. Really depends on the year for a person and their level of experience. But at this point, I generally have, I would say 20. Some, though, are continuing students. They're seniors. They've kind of got their stuff, pretty much settled in. They just need a little help with maybe thesis or advice on the next steps. And then as far as first years, I'll get, anywhere between 5 and 15. It just depends on the year. And the way that I handle this is a lot of access. So for those of you who work, for example, I'll set out a bunch of meetings to all of my advisees, and I will give you a link to my Google Calendar where I have lots of different time slots. And then, of course, I have my office hours, which are for everyone. But you can count upon me to follow up with you at the 4-week mark, the 8-week mark, just making sure that you're because you can be shy at first, you're new to Reed, you're also making friends, and a lot of things are demanding your time. Maybe you're learning how to regulate your sleep, or like reminding yourself to eat. And so that's part of my job too, is just to kind of make sure that everything is going the way you want. And I always will make sure that you have an opportunity to meet with me whenever works. And of course now there's Zoom, which it's not as intimate, but we've gotten somewhat used to it. So there's no problem with contacting us that way. So basically, whatever your situation, working, not working, can't make my office hours, we always figure out a way.
Totally. And Million mentioned Undecided too, right? So
yeah.
A chunk of you will literally write Undecided on your forms. Another chunk of you actually will find yourselves potentially undecided. We'll work with you all as you kind of go through. So, my physics crew this year, right, there are 5 of them, 3 of them are still physics, a couple of them, one of them really enjoyed the history pieces of Hum 110 and is now a history major. One of them took a religion class in the spring, loved that, now a religion major. So on some level, neither of them is undecided, but they had a sort of brief undecided moment, or at least a transition, right? They sort of went from one to the other, and that's easy to work through. If I have a student who really doesn't know what they want to do, right, I will just start sort of laying out scenarios, right? Well, you could take this group of classes. This will cover your bases, this group. And usually, you do, in fact, have some preferences, right? And Hum 110 is kind of fantastic here because it's a required course, but it's also the beginning course for a huge chunk of majors. in this college, right? So it sort of keeps your options open while you're exploring there. But usually, if you really don't know, and you kind of like everything, a good way to go is lab science, social science, or language, something like that for across the first year. But you can also sort of mix it up in the 2 semesters too. But it's just not that hard to take a basket of things and move from undecided to I'm really enjoying this. And you don't need a major till the end of your 2nd year, right? There is a lot of coursework between now and then. So if you're thinking, all my friends, they all know they want to be a physics major or a Latin major or whatever, right? A, that's not true. But B, good for them. Fantastic. But you don't need to be that person.
Love that for them, but yeah.
So we have a good question from Lena. You mentioned the 2+1 in each of the group requirements. So is that 9 required courses, basically freshman and sophomore year?
The answer is no on 2 counts. One is your major will almost certainly cover the 2+1 in your division because of the way the major is structured. So you're looking at 6 required classes outside of your major, and they don't need to be done in your freshman and sophomore year. I do think it's a good idea to take some of them early because you never know what you might like. But usually people are kind of finishing them off here and there in the course of the 4 years. So no, you don't have to get them done by the end of your 2nd year.
So what if I have an advisor that's outside of my major, my program? Is that anything I should be nervous about? Do people usually switch advisors?
Not at first. I mean, I think the biggest division, and maybe Nigel can chime in, is if you're a little bit more onto the humanities or social sciences bent, and you get a hardcore, STEM advisor, you just might at some point, not in that first semester. There's nothing to worry about if you like them, if they've given you a good plan. But again, we find that at some point you'll have questions at a level where the advisor or the student says, well, I still want to keep in contact and keep you as a mentor, because that's the important thing too, is it's just an additional person. And so we'll say, okay, well, why don't I refer you over to that realm and see if there's is there a course that you've really enjoyed by a professor in that field that you would really love to have as an advisor? That's often how it happens. Or again, you filled out your questionnaire after staying up all night, playing Fallout or something. I don't know, whatever people do. And then you fill it out and you're like woozy. You say, well, I want to do video game development. Okay, great. And then you get here and you're like, actually, just kidding. I actually am just really interested in neuroscience. And so you get this, advisor that was in comp sci, and then you decide you want to do something completely different. Just let us know. We'll get you in the right spot. But the original person that you get assigned will be super helpful and make you feel at home.
Yeah, and I would say, read that there's 150 faculty, right? So we pretty much know everybody. And this isn't because, I was dean, right? So with my physics students, if I have a question that I can't answer, I just go talk to one of the people in the physics department, all of whom I know, right? And physics is a separate building, but like if it's a history question, I just shout out the door to Mary and I ask Mary what the answer is. It's not like the information is sort of secret and inaccessible, right? One thing your advisor can do typically is get information much more quickly than you can, or at least know where the information resides. And, so I may not have the answer right now, but I'll have it tomorrow. And it's just, you're not at a disadvantage. And it's usually complicated things like, I want to do this and study abroad in the 2nd semester of my junior year.
Ooh,
I'm sure we can do that,
wow.
but I'll
Study
work
abroad, super important to tell your advisor if you're interested in that from the very get-go, even if you're not sure how to do it or if it's possible. Pretty much every Reedie has the opportunity, even in a double major, to go somewhere and oh, my light just went out. The heavens are.
But Kelly's right?
We want you to go places.
Yeah,
Let us know.
some of the opportunity is much tighter,
Yeah.
right? Depending on how structured the major is. So a major like physics, right? You take JLab after 201, and 201's a year long, and it comes after 101, which, you know, and so on and so on, right? And so you can't double them up. You've got to keep on going in sequence. So the study abroad program has to fit with that, right? In English, you could take 4 English classes in one semester and then go abroad and not take an English class, right? That's fine, right? It's just not structured in the same way. Yeah. But some majors, you gotta plan earlier, right? Yeah. And you don't want to kind of get there suddenly when you need your JLab.
And it's accessible to everyone. As someone who grew up really poor, I didn't know that there were opportunities. Like, I was like, do I have to pay for this? Like, yeah, what is going? I've never traveled. Like, I don't really know. And I'm a STEM major. Can I take, you know, these, you know, because STEM, it's like, it feels like it's really structured. We have ways around this. Also, the scientific official language is English. And so there are ways that we can get around it. Also, if you speak a different language, and you're very comfortable with that, all to the better. So just, again, that first year, I just, yeah, before we went anywhere else, let us know that you're interested.
So maybe just summarizing, right, that letter.
Yes,
right,
the letter.
So Kelly talked about putting your hopes in there, hopes and dreams, kind of what I want to be in college, also what I want to be after college, right, all that sort of stuff. But also things like study abroad should definitely go in there. And then the other things Kelly talked about, right, maybe things you're worried about, things that have been an obstacle in the past, and maybe if you have a sense of what resources you need, or you know, we can also think that through with you as well. But I think those are the kinds of things you want in your letter.
So this question may be a little bit abstruse, but or abstract, I should say. But I think when I was starting school, I was really curious about the person I would be in my senior year, and so I'm wondering if both of you can reflect on, you know, a student and a conversation that you may have had with them their first year, and how that conversation was different their senior year. Maybe one student, it may be general, but help our incoming students imagine the kind of development they have and how that relationship may transition over the course of 4 years.
Gosh, there have been so many amazing students, and you watch them grow up both physically and mentally and emotionally. You have one more growth spurt, it seems, during college. Just as a biochemist, I observe this. And so there's a lot kind of going on. But I think the biggest thing is the openness to try and the openness to dive in. So I think, you know, we could talk about particular majors and things, but I don't think that that's, I mean, I've seen plenty of major changes, and, you know, we tend to get those as early as possible to, you know, make sure that you aren't panicking about, oh, do I have to take summer classes? Which, by the way, don't ever be afraid to ask us about opportunities elsewhere if you're feeling behind, or if you want to take something that we don't offer. Just let us know about that. But it really is that first year, it's either students feeling like they're not being challenged enough at first, because maybe they have AP or IB, and I will tell you that after about 4 weeks in, you don't feel that way anymore. But we can help you with those questions. And there's kind of a rigidity, I think, coming out of high school of, you know, how to perform, how to learn, that gets really overturned at Reed. Now we're really living the life of the mind. We're not about outward achievement or performance. That comes naturally out of your interest. And so we're really trying to get you to get that liberal arts sort of being game for trying different things. So over that point, when I talk to juniors and seniors, it's a bigger conversation of like, okay, well, you are going to do your thesis in, I don't know, you're going to do your thesis in chemistry. But this final year, what would you like to do before it's time to go? And students at seniors, they will take things that are so exciting, and they're not afraid. They're like, it's okay if I don't do great. I just really want to learn it. And we're trying to get you into that mindset. Just try it. Just open your mind to solving problems. And to me, I think that's what I often see.
Yeah, I like that. I think first year students, for obvious reasons, right? They tend to be worried about, rules and regs and numbers and requirements and so on. And you spend a lot of time with that, right? And gradually, of course, you get to internalize those, you get to understand, it becomes second nature. And also you kind of settle down and get a sense of yourself academically and socially, and you become more sort of confident, independent, partly because you just know how to navigate the place. And something bigger than that, something interior, right? Some sort of sense of self. Thesis, I think, as Kelly alluded to, is big here. But you find, at some point when you meet with your advisees, there's nothing technical to talk about, right? They know how to sign up. They know what they're going to take. And on some level, they want to, and you just get to have a chat about like whatever, right? What's in the newspaper, what's going on, what they find really interesting about chemistry, whatever it is, right? It gets bigger and sort of more substantial in certain ways. Not that requirements aren't important, but it always seems like it's a little more rushed early on.
Yeah.
You can think a little bigger and a little more widely.
So 2 more questions. This one's really, thanks, Nigel, for that. And that's the thing that we sort of take for granted, is that, we'll get to know your professors because it's thrown around so easily when you're looking on the college search. But that really does take on a different type of, number one, it really does happen. And it happens very organically in these natural places. And I think that's one of the neat things about this place.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. The first question is really straightforward. When will we learn who our advisor is? And do we know that?
I don't know when that will happen.
I think when we in the final 2 weeks before the semester starts, it seems to me that's when we start to heat up in terms of, because we make special time out of our schedules to meet with the first years. So we get a lot of time with you at that beginning. And so you're given, we're given enough time before orientation sort of wildness, but you do meet with us during that orientation process. And I think a few students who are more concerned about maybe not sure what they want to do or want to do something out of the ordinary, then we might get contacted sooner. If you want to communicate with professors about a major or something like that before, if you're just really excited, there's nothing wrong with a very polite professional email to any of the folks, and we would all be happy to answer your questions about basic things about the major. So you can look on our faculty pages and say, okay, I still want to learn a little something. I haven't been assigned a advisor yet. Can you please tell me a little bit more about the IB credit for, XYZ? That we can 100% help with. And some people just like to do things early, And then interdisciplinary major, creating your own major. How do you get placed with an advisor?
I'll jump in and I'll say one more thing.
Oh, yeah, please.
Kelly, you will be doing selecting your class through an online process, connecting with your advisors this year, and that will happen during August. So just prepare during the summer. We're going to reach out to you, let you know who that is, and either happen just before orientation at some time, or I believe it's right before orientation. I'll check and I'll make sure you all get that information. And then at that point, you will meet with someone who will set you up for your classes, who may or may not be your advisor. But more information to come. I'm reading here that you're going to get something in your email within the next couple of weeks.
Ooh, nice. Got the intel, Million.
Yeah, that's great.
Answering the question about, if you want to do an interdisciplinary, create your own major, how do you get placed with an advisor, and how does that work? I think is another good question.
I ran into this particularly with biochemistry and molecular biology as a interdisciplinary major. The important thing here, and I'll let Nigel take it from there because I'm a chair of BMB, but I'm not as aware of other interdisciplinary, but it's a very popular and difficult choice because at Reed, you must do, if you do dual majors or things like that, if you choose your own adventure, you must do 2 theses. one in each field. Now, BMB is a formal interdisciplinary major because of its popularity in that we have integrated it into doing one thesis. But that is not the case for all of them. So your mileage may vary. Check with your advisor, of course. But you also must take 2 qualifying exams, which is not a big deal. It's a rite of passage. It's something where we're literally helping you learn on your feet, and you've already been given all of the coursework necessary to do wonderfully in it. So I don't want to talk about exams as a thing that's like through the ring of fire. But in any case, you get placed with an advisor, for example, with BMB, someone who might be in biology, might be in neuroscience, might be in chemistry, might be in biochemistry, but we all are very well poised to help you with that.
Yeah, I just more generally, right? So as Kelly said, there are a lot of different flavors of doing more than one discipline, right? So one can double major, but that literally means doing 2 majors, 2 sets of requirements, 2 theses. Then there's an interdisciplinary major, which in most cases, there's a standing version of this, right? So there's a set of things you need to do, and you need to be, thinking about this early because it's typically bigger, right? There are more things you need to do, and for some of these majors, you need admission to the major rather than just sort of having admission to the major, right? So you need to sort of actually do some active applying. Your advisor can help you with that, right? And above all, what your advisor is going to do is, prep you essentially for the interdisciplinary major, the majors in the 2 different disciplines themselves, and maybe something else, right? To sort of try and keep a bunch of things open, right? So maybe BMB is your thing, biochemistry and molecular biology, but maybe biology is your thing, right? And maybe chemistry is your thing, right? All of those, in a certain way, right? You could actually end up thesis-wise, not necessarily doing wholly dissimilar work, depending on who you work with and which way you choose to go, right? The coursework is certainly open to you. But interdisciplinary majors like study abroad, right? They just need a little more planning than some majors because they're bigger, right? So thinking about it early, and that doesn't mean now, right? But during your first year, if you're like, I had no idea what biochemistry was, now I'm kind of interested in it, talk to your advisor, no worries. And that's the same with all the others, right? Whether it's, international relations, any of the different interdisciplinary majors out there.
Nigel and Kelly, unless we have more questions, I think I'm going to move you to what might be after this, a final question. So this question is, can you talk a little bit about advisors in the 3-2 majors? Let me sharpen that up a bit.
I think just before we talk about that, I think there's one thing we should talk about, which is what to do to prep for the meeting.
Actually, yep, that was
That's
my
your
next
last one.
question.
Okay.
And so, so why don't we do those 2?
3-2 first.
Yeah. And maybe you talk a little bit like, so some students want to do a dual degree program, which means you start at Reed. And what I usually tell students is it establishes a 3-2 where you spend 3 years at Reed and then 2 years at another school should you gain admission while at Reed. We do have some students that end up completing their 4 years at Reed because they don't want to miss out on their senior year. Doesn't mean that they're giving up this other program. It just means that they want to conclude that senior year at Reed. Can you talk a little bit about the advising program? And last thing I'll say, we do have students who take advantage of this. You've probably heard a lot of schools that talk about 3-2 and then they're like, you won't like it. We have students that take advantage of our 3-2 program. That is a legitimate piece of our curriculum here.
I think the biggest one, numbers wise, is engineering. Is that right?
Yes.
We don't have an engineering department, but a bunch of the folks in the physics department have engineering interests. I think the advice for this, if you're interested in this, talk to your advisor about it. But it's like interdisciplinary majors, right? There are certain things you really have to do and certain things you maybe need to be thinking about. Some of them have GPA cutoffs, for example.
Yeah.
So you need to be more aware, perhaps, of your early progress than some other folks. but just again, sort of talking about it, I think I'm trying to think what the others are. There's a forestry program in biology.
Mhm.
And we have just some like sister colleges, I think, or universities where, yeah, if you wanted to go on, I can't think, we don't get a ton, mostly because folks who initially decide to do this sometimes can be a little on the fence about the small college in general, and then they end up falling in love with it and they realize that they can do what they want to do at Reed. I mean, honestly, I mean that's what I run into. But then I have had people who successfully did the 3-2 for engineering, but again, it it's fine. It can be done. It is fruitful, but you do need to know, whether obliquely or not, you really do need to know your grades. And so that's where you need to let us know right away that that is something that you want. And you can have it in a way where you can say, hey, can you just let me know if I'm starting to dip below, but you can also get the number values. And so usually most of the students who want to do the 3-2, or again, want to get into a medical program or a really competitive grad program or something, letting us know ahead of time that you do need to keep track a little bit more of your academic performance in a way that's comfortable for you. That's really important with that program. So we'll help you with the 3-2,
Right.
but
these programs have special committees, and if you're still going that way at the end of your first year, the committee will start sort of taking you in hand and making sure you know what the deal is, and so on.
Excellent. So I chatted out our dual degree programs, forestry, environmental sciences, and pre-med and veterinary preparation are also two. We've also got really good videos on our website of some of the folks who've done some of our 3-2 programs. Some of the advisors that Nigel just mentioned, a student who's currently in a dual degree program, and a student who was just admitted or accepted into a dual degree program. So almost every perspective from soup to nuts.
Awesome.
So that video is right on the admission page under the academic section. And so
Kelly mentioned minors too. We have a lot of minors and they're proving very popular.
Yes, we're getting more all the time. And I think before you jump into saying, I want to do it all, the minors can actually be literally just one class away, without having to do, you're confident in your minor. Yeah.
Super way of doing it all. Yeah.
So Nigel, you're going to talk a bit about, you sort of mentioned next steps, which I think is really helpful. And, in doing that, if you could also give our guest one or two things that a question they can bring with them that'll really help facilitate the conversation.
I'll ponder that last one while I'm going through the other stuff. But so, you will meet with your advisor, and in the course of that meeting, right, you'll get to know each other, and you'll talk about some of these hopes and fears and worries and dreams and so on. But also you will end up with a plan for the classes you're going to take, right? So there's going to be a very sort of concrete output, right? And so before that, you need to do some of your own thinking about what classes you might want to be in. But to do that, I would really use the major planners. So when you're thinking, gosh, history, I like history, I think that might be a good major for me, or chemistry, or whatever it is, look at the major planner, because you really want to think of what you're doing on the major level rather than sort of going through the course catalog and being like, well, that looks interesting. All of these things look interesting. I'd like to do them all, right? We can help you with sort of, what are the classes that are open to first years and appropriate to first years for the goals you have. So the major planners are sort of set up like that, right? It's like first year physics majors, you know what they're going to do. This is what they take. Second year chemistry majors who didn't know they were going to be chemistry majors, this is what they're going to take as sophomores, right? And they're wonderfully helpful at just sort of cutting through kind of, these are the sort of rough things it's going to look like. So spend some time with that, I would. And I'd think in terms of bigger units rather than specific classes. Kelly, do you have anything to add while I think of something to ask your advisor?
Well, there is a question. if one is trying to get into some level of 200 class, so that would be like a sophomore level class, because one has taken prior credits, should we reach out earlier to try to get a spot in the classes? Well, there are slots available in many of the sophomore courses for qualifying folks. Now, it is difficult when we think about prior credits because our curriculum is a very well-oiled machine, and what we teach you is at the college level. So generally, and we also have an accelerated growth model. So essentially, like Gen Chem, right? You may have covered quite a bit in high school, and you come in thinking, well, I really don't need. Can I take some sophomore level courses? Again, after about 4 weeks, we've covered most of what you have covered in high school at a level, and we're coming at it from a very different conceptual level to bring you into the mindset of a chemist, whether or not you're going to major or not. It's a transformative thing that makes you an informed citizen, right? It's a pretty cool process. But yes, of course, if you do qualify for these 200 level classes, there are petitions. We can easily find a way. We're generally not very rigid on class sizes unless it is a conference scenario where there is a dynamic teacher to student ratio that needs to be met. Basically, you will be given to us in time, so don't worry about that.
I think that's right. The other thing to remember is for most things, so specifically if you've done the classes, yeah, talk to the chair.
And there's a great add-on to this, Nigel. I was in the Reed Young Scholars Program. This student was for Chem 101 and 102. This is a case where yes, we will. Yes. And wonderful. I'm glad you were in it.
Most classes that are gonna have a regular process for getting into the next level up will also have placement exams.
Yeah.
So look out for the placement exams, right? Whether it's languages or economics or math. There are sort of easy ways to show that it's the right place, right? But you definitely don't want to go beyond the right place. You're much better off redoing than flailing.
Yeah, it just makes you feel confident too. It's great to come in with a little bit, and it's okay to come in with nothing. That's fine too. We've seen it all.
Yeah, but so things to ask your advisor. Gosh, I don't know.
What would make you chatty? Someone comes and pops in your office.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think we're humans, and I think that it is a little bit daunting to come in and meet a professor, one that you may not even necessarily interact with in the classroom, and you're kind of nervous about it. And I actually have suggestions. If anyone, I can give these along to Milian. I have a list of things that you can bring into office hours that you may not have anticipated. So that really ties into this as well. You can bring up anything you like. You can ask us pretty much anything.
Totally.
And we love to talk about our work or recent theses that we have advised. We love to talk about our favorite particular aspects of Reed. We'll be honest about our least favorite. You're in, so you're a part of our community. And we can help you. And sometimes there's interpersonal things, or I don't know, like if you want to know Portland better, that's another thing too. Many Reedies don't really know who to ask to like go out and see shows or to go to the Japanese garden, and maybe they want to explore the city on their own. How do they rent a bike? Like these are all questions that, yes, of course, Reed admissions and lots of folks have answered these questions, but we have a lot of experience with things that maybe, and interests that maybe you didn't realize. So you can ask us sort of off the wall stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key, right? It's you don't have to worry about breaking the ice, right? And
we'll break it.
Alluding to is really important here, right? Because this isn't just with your advisor, right? Office hours really are for you to go to, right? I'm really pleased to see people in my office hours. I'm not irritated. I don't think, I want to watch some YouTube, whatever it is. I want to see my students, right? And frankly, I'm pleased to see them when it's not office hours, right? It's what we do.
I've always got snacks. Y'all are hungry.
Well, that's better than me. But but I'm very happy to see you.
I dare say you'd take them for a cup of coffee, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Kelly will set aside her game of Fallout
Yes.
Japan.
I'm playing New Vegas right now. It's the one I haven't played. It's going very well. And yeah.
Well, you know, and that's what I've said. We have full-time faculty who are dedicated to the people who work here right now, and that's the secret sauce here. And so, you know, and I think even if you said somewhere at the end of any statement, you said, "Do you have any advice?" These are a group of folks who will have some advice for you.
Yeah.
And I promise you, you're always going to walk away thinking about something you didn't think about before. And I think that's a special part of this. And I just want to say that I am so excited to see you all in a few months. I think this is going to be an amazing summer, and I'll be around again. But if you have any questions, let us know. Get in touch. I'll see you at some of our future sessions. And like, if anything comes up that you're just not sure about, let us know. That's what we're here for. This relationship doesn't stop. We continue to be a resource for you. And that's what we're really good at.
And if you want to contact Nigel or I would say go through admissions or through Million or whomever your contact has been, just because it can be easier, because I will get a lot of emails and I won't really know. But yeah, we're now two faces that you recognize. If you see us on campus, don't be afraid to say hi.
Exactly right.
Nigel, Kelly, thanks so much.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See y'all later. Have a good
Can't
day,
wait to
everyone.
see you all.
Bye.
Bye.